Lizzie Borden, the queen of the axe murderers, maybe the best known killer in U.S. history. There are so many myths about her.
Let's dig into this.
Lizzie Borden took an axe and gave her mother 40 whacks. When she saw what she had done, she gave her father 41.
This catchy and clever rhyme started around the time of Lizzie's murder trial in 1893 and was sung to the tune of Tarara Boomdier. Almost everything about it is myth, of course.
Lizzie's mother had died before Lizzie turned 3. Abby Borden was her stepmother, and Lizzie always made it quite clear, calling her Mrs. Borden and making no secret of her dislike and suspicion that Abby was after her father Andrew's money.
Abby Borden was hit 18 or 19 times while Andrew was struck 10 or 11, making the total of 81 whacks in the rhyme an overstatement by 50+ whacks. And they were killed by a hatchet, not an axe. While Andrew was Lizzie's father, she was acquitted of all charges, making it impossible to say with certainty, even if we believe it, that Lizzie whacked her parents.
No one seems to remember the second verse of the rhyme these days. It went, Andrew Borden is now dead. Lizzie hit him on the head. Up in heaven he will sing, and on the gallows she will swing.
Stories started to fly when Lizzie was arrested for murder. One of the strangest involved her school days when she supposedly killed a girl, or two, and no one thought anything of it.
When Lizzie was a young girl, or possibly in her early teens, she reportedly traveled to stay with her friend Blanche's family over a school holiday. She had been there several days when she came down for breakfast one morning and didn't wait politely for Blanche before she dug in. Her rudeness was noted, and everybody wondered why Blanche was so late. Suddenly, Lizzie said she forgot to tell everyone that Blanche was dead. Just like that. And went on eating her stewed prunes.
Blanche was found dead in her bed in the room she was sharing with Lizzie. The doctor was called and immediately said it was heart failure, which the family seems to have accepted without question. Even more strange was Lizzie immediately asking if they were going to read Blanche's will. She was reportedly shocked to find out she'd have to wait until after the funeral.
When the will was read, Lizzie had a bit of a fit, saying Blanche had made her beneficiary instead of the family, and left in a huff. And no one in the family thought about the whole situation again until Bordens were found murdered.
Another story involves a school friend named Bessie who was an invalid. Lizzie reportedly visited Bessie often, spending hours sitting with her. After one visit, the girl was found dead with strangulation marks on her neck, and items were missing from the room where she was found. The police were not called because the family knew Bessie had some incurable disease and no one wanted to incriminate Lizzie.
Both of these stories are hard to believe. The story about Blanche is attributed to a book published in 1963, and the Bessie story is one of those gossipy, I heard it from my mother that her friend's cousin said stories repeated at dinner parties. Since there's no evidence either happened, and since children or teenagers would never have had a will at the time when most adults, including Andrew Borden, didn't have one, we would have to say these stories are myths.
The story says Lizzie's uncle John Morse was not only having an affair with her, but had a huge fight with Andrew Borden the night before the murders, owed Borden money, and was the mastermind behind the killings.
The reports of who Morse was and what he did for a living range from the Falls River horse killer, called out by town officials to kill any horse found to have hoof and mouth disease to prevent its spread, supposedly right out in the open on the street with a hatchet, to being a trained butcher who always carried a huge cleaver with him.
The truth is, John Morse was Lizzie's mother's brother and had been in business with Andrew Borden for years before moving west, living in several states before settling in Iowa, farming and breeding horses. He was reportedly Andrew Borden's closest friend and visited often.
He did show up at the Borden home the day before the murders, with no luggage, supposedly to visit relatives in town, and he did spend the night before the murders in the guest room where Abby Borden would be murdered. Because of this, he was the suspect for a short time.
According to trial transcripts, Morse had breakfast on the morning of the murders with Andrew and Abby, and then went to visit his relatives across town. An aunt confirmed his visit at the time of the murders, and he was seen by others in town. He returned just after the murders, entering the yard from the back and eating a pear before finding out the Bordens had been brutally hacked to death just minutes before. Police were already on the scene by the time Morse entered the house.
His alibi was easily proven, and he was never arrested for the murders. And the story of him fighting with Andrew Borden or owing him money never came up in his trial testimony. The first reference we can find of the fight is from a newspaper article that states Morse was the actual murderer. Research into the accusation of incest between Morse and Lizzie falls apart. The myth seems to be an untraceable later invention.
The story was that everyone in town knew Lizzie hated her stepmother and wanted her father's money.
One thing that can be said for certain about Lizzie Borden was she thought her father was among the richest men in Fall River, Massachusetts, and she wasn't wrong. He was the president of a bank and owned several other businesses in town. He also owned residential and commercial property, including the A.J. Borden building, which was nearly completed when he died. Andrew Borden's estate was valued at $300,000 at the time of the murders. Today, that would be roughly $10 million.
But he was also extremely frugal and wouldn't spend a penny he didn't have to. Lizzie believed her family belonged in the rich part of town, with amenities like electricity and indoor plumbing and a staff to take care of the daily work she and Emma were expected to do. Lizzie wanted desperately to be a part of high society in town.
When her father married Abby Gray 3 years after her mother's death, it was just another step in the wrong direction for Lizzie. Abby came from a working class family and was far below the Bordens in social status. Lizzie knew Abby married her father for his money and seemed to treat Abby more like hired help than a member of the family.
It didn't help that Andrew Borden bailed out members of Abby's family financially. After he gave Abby's sister a house, Lizzie and her sister Emma confronted their father, demanding they receive something too. Andrew sold their childhood home to them for $1 to keep the peace. This wasn't a loving family.
Since Abby Borden died first, her estate went to Andrew, and then to Lizzie and Emma. Several of Abby's relatives objected to this and were paid to settle claims against the estate. Lizzie and Emma bought the home that Lizzie thought they had deserved all those years, right after the trial ended. Lizzie changed her name to Lizbeth, and then tried to live the society life she had always been denied.
The story says there was another axe murder in Fall River before Lizzie even went to trial.
On June 1st, 1893, just before Lizzie's murder trial started, a woman named Bertha Manchester was hacked to death in her kitchen in Fall River. The murder weapon was an axe, and the similarities of the Borden murders was chilling.
Lizzie was not a suspect in this murder since her every move was being watched. The man convicted of killing Bertha Manchester was not in Fall River at the time of the Borden murders and was never a suspect in that crime. But the fact that another axe murder had happened just 4 days before Lizzie's trial certainly added to the fear and suspicion in Fall River.
The story is, Lizzie and Emma had a fight a few years after the murders, and Emma moved away. The sisters never saw each other again.
Just as soon after the trial as they could, the sisters moved into the mansion Lizzie named Maplecroft in the fashionable part of town. But Lizzie found herself shunned by the society folks she had wanted to be a part of for so long. While they lived separate lives, with Lizzie traveling and living the high life she had always dreamed of, and Emma being much quieter and more reserved, the sisters got along well for over 10 years.
And then Lizzie met Nance O'Neill, an actress who would later become famous, but at the time was struggling financially and being sued for unpaid bills. They became close friends quickly, and Lizzie paid Nance's legal bills and even went to court with her. Gossip around Fall River linked the pair sexually after Nance and her acting company stayed at Maplecroft, and Nance's reputation as a loose woman spread.
In 1905, Lizzie threw a lavish party for Nance O'Neill at Maplecroft, sparing no expense. She had an orchestra and expensive catering and even rented palm trees for the event, saying this was what the house was made for. It was apparently more than Emma could take, and the sisters had a major fight. Emma left Maplecroft that night, and they never saw each other again. When questioned by reporters over the years, Emma never spoke of the reason for their fight, and she continued to defend Lizzie for the rest of her life.
Lizzie died of pneumonia at Maplecroft on June 1st, 1927, at the age of 66. Emma died just 9 days later in Newmarket, New Hampshire. With them died the last hope of ever finding the truth of the Borden murders. The sisters are buried together in the family plot at Oak Grove Cemetery in Fall River with Andrew and Abby Borden.
Thanks for watching.
Don't forget to like and subscribe.
And we'll see you on the next one. Hey, here's another Dragon Den video you might like.
And if you like this video, don't forget to hit that thumbs up button.
And you can hit the notification bell if you'd like to know when our videos come out.
Thanks for watching. We'll see you on the next one.